you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Dead up perfect in the kid. Got a billion new single, my hater, the big better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million, the devil, that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Naruto Finds Ben's Watch Ultimatrix. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of nomadic chaos on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The month of June passed quite quickly and was a rather joyful one, considering how Kato had returned from his last mission and was met with an overjoyed Tsunade and Shizune as well as their kids and Naruto, who were ecstatic to see the silver-haired veteran again. Beyond that, Naruto had been hard at work in not only building gadgets for himself and Sasuke, but also building up security measures for his house. After all, in a village full of shinobi that were soldiers for hire, it was better to be safe than sorry in the Ultimatrix wielder's mind. June 23, 996 SE, Kanhoa. It was a sunny Thursday afternoon as Naruto was at the Akamichi Bar and Grill with his grandpa Dan, as the Ultimatrix wielder was just ecstatic to be hanging out with his godfather after so long. "I can't believe you actually retired, Grandpa," Naruto said whilst sitting across from the Jonin in question who was finishing his steak. "Neither can I, Naruto. But even I have to admit that things are getting a bit too intense for me," Dan half-joked with his grandson. "Hey, I won't argue about whatever crazy stuff is going on. Although, I just gotta know, what made you want to retire from being a badass super Jonin? I mean, out of everyone in the village other than Pervy Sage and Dad? You're the strongest guy in the village," Naruto asked. "That would be a combination of two things, Naruto. The first and most important are my family. I mean, if I had to choose between them and the village, 9 times out of 10, I would die for them before I ever go against them for the hidden leaf," Dan told his godson, who inhaled a forkful of pulled pork. "Of course. I mean, with people like Granny Tsunade, Misako, and Kanishi, then I'd feel the same way. I mean, hell, a village can always be rebuilt. But a family, that's something that only comes once in a lifetime," Naruto replied, knowing that a family, unlike a village that once sundered, was nigh impossible to restore. "Exactly, I've come pretty close to death a number of times as a Jonin of this village. I almost died and lost my chance to be with Tsunade and start a family countless times during the Second and Third World Wars. So believe me when I say that, my time to hang up my headband and stay with my family has come," Dan said back with the weary tiredness of a war veteran. With Dan Kato knowing full well that from all the times he has narrowly escaped death in his decades-long career as a shinobi, his time in the spotlight was coming to an end. Therefore, he knew that his best option at this moment in time was to step away and let the next batch of soldiers to bear the headband of the hidden leaf. For he knew that if he were to continue to push his luck, there wouldn't be a next time for him to come back. I mean, let's be real with each other, Naruto. I've probably evaded death more times than I can count. So to push my luck in the field and widow my wife, my niece, and most of all, my children, would be a mistake that would haunt me beyond the afterlife itself," Dan added. "Can't really blame you, Gramps. I mean, you've done more missions for the village than I can probably count. That's why if anyone deserves to call it quits, it's you," Naruto spoke, gaining a smile from the powder blue-haired man. "Thank you for acknowledging that. It means a lot to hear that from the young man who is like one my own," Dan replied. "Same to the man who I'm happy to call my super awesome grandpa," Naruto said back as he and Dan continued to eat their food. "By the way, what are you gonna do now that you've retired? I mean, a badass uber ninja like yourself has gotta have something in his back pocket," Naruto asked. "To be honest, I haven't figured that out quite yet," Dan answered back, surprising Naruto. "Really? I figured that you would have had something figured out. I mean, you're the man with a plan, who's punked out death more times than anyone can count, so I gotta say, I'm shocked that the ghost of Kanhoa doesn't have a plan up his sleeve for bowing out," Naruto said, getting an exasperated sigh from the older man. "I swear I can't stand that nickname. It's what's the word I'm thinking of," Dan replied. Cringy, gaudy, over the top. Naruto listed off. All of the above, Dan said back in a deadpan. To be fair, Grandpa, you do make a whole set of techniques that turns you into a walking, talking ghost man, so I'm pretty sure you brought this on yourself. Naruto told the elder of the two. In my defense, I just wanted to make a technique that would help end battles quickly. I didn't think it would end in such a god-awful nickname, Dan said whilst pinching the bridge of his nose. Well, it's thanks to that technique that you're still around to live the good life with Granny, Naruto replied, as the expression on his godfather's face turned to a more joyous one at that. Now, that is one of the few things that I'm proud of this technique for, Dan said with an earnest smile. That's what I like to hear, Naruto replied, meeting Dan's smile with one of his own. So other than that, what's the other thing that had you wanting to retire? Naruto questioned. That is less complicated to explain. To put it simply, with everything I've done in service of Kanhoa, I honestly feel as though I have nothing left to prove, Dan answered back. With my renown and fame, or infamy if you ask our enemies, having reached if not matched that of Tsunade and Jireya's own, so because of that, in combination with my first reason, is why I've decided to retire, Dan told his godson with a simple shrug of his shoulders. Makes sense to me. I mean, I can't really think of anything else that you'd have to prove. I mean, you've just about damn near done everything that someone like you could, other than being hawkish, and having that BS sage mode that pervy sage and dad have. I'd say you've accomplished everything that life could offer, Naruto replied. Indeed I have. Now I can finally relax, knowing I've done everything I could for the village and my family, Dan said with his smile widening slightly at this fact. Yup, so here's to my badass grandpa, finally going into retirement. Long may he reign, Naruto exclaimed as Dan could only smile at the hardly contained, yet boundless energy and joy the blonde seemed to have. I swear my godson is truly something else, Dan said to himself as he looked on at Naruto. From there he and Naruto continued to enjoy their lunch with one another, and shared in the good cheer in celebration of Dan retiring from active service to the Hidden Leaf. With it being after another near hour of sharing in each other's company, that they eventually left the bar and grill. Yet it was after Naruto was a good distance away from the bar and grill, that he was approached by an Anbu operative, and not just an ordinary one, but a root agent at that. With said agent having come to deliver a personal message from Danzo himself, that he wanted to speak with Naruto tomorrow about a possible induction into their ranks, and that should he choose to accept this invitation to speak with the Warhawk, that he would be escorted to the premises of their headquarters to speak with him at 9:30 sharp. The Ultimatrix wielder being too intrigued by what this could bring to him, and the thought that Danzo Shimura of all people wanted him to join Root had him too interested to reject this offer, and as such he accepted it, and with that the masked operative disappeared, leaving a very intrigued Naruto standing with one thought in mind. Looks like things just keep getting more interesting for me, Naruto said before continuing his walk home in good spirits. The next morning, 9:30 a.m., Root HQ. It was the following morning as Naruto had been led to the headquarters of the Root organization, where he was soon escorted to the Warhawk's office, where he sat with all the imposing force of will that one of his experience and station could command. Thank you for escorting young Naruto to the premises. That will be all, Danzo said to the Root operative beside Naruto. As you wish, Lord Danzo, the Root operative said before walking away. Now then, take a seat. We have quite a few things to discuss, Danzo told the Ultimatrix wielder. All right, Naruto responded before he took a seat before the Warhawk. So let's get to it, and skip past the small talk. I know you called me here to possibly join up with your outfit. The only thing I don't get is why. I mean, if it were Nayaya or Hayes that you were calling here, then I would understand. Naruto questioned the Warhawk. Straight to the point. Good to see that you appreciate a more direct approach. The reason why I want you to join is that I know of what you can do, Danzo answered back, causing Naruto to raise a semi-confused brow at this. I'm gonna need you to elaborate because I'm still not following, Naruto requested. Let me rephrase my statement. I know of what you can transform into, young man, The roots of the hidden leaf are vast and far-reaching. Did you really think that you could keep secret your ability to transform into these aliens as you call them? Danzo said, causing Naruto's placid expression to turn into one of utter shock and slight fear. Does anyone else know about my aliens? Naruto questioned with a nervous gulp. No, other than myself and my most trusted operatives. There is no one else that knows of your ability to transform into these creatures. Not the fourth Hokage, your mother, nor that blithering lecher of a Sannin knows. I have had my agents make sure that they have been kept in the dark about your unique abilities, for now. Danzo informed the blonde teen. That's a massive relief. Moving out without their know-how is one thing, but telling them I can transform into a dozen aliens is another. Naruto mentally sighed in relief. And I will keep it that way for you. I will not have someone with abilities such as yours be wasted in mediocrity, when they can be expanded upon in my organization. Danzo spoke. Which brings it back to the whole if I should join you. Naruto replied. Correct. Granted, I cannot force you to join me. I am many things, but not enough to anger your godparents and the Uchiha clan if I coerced you into doing so. Therefore, the choice is ultimately up to you. Danzo said, knowing the full weight of what could happen if he forced the blonde into his ranks. I am a man of many things, but I am not a foolish nor arrogant one. Danzo added, his piercing gaze still trained onto Naruto. Considering that you were the guy who's a big part of the reason we aren't in ruins, I would imagine so. Naruto said before drumming his hands on the table. That being said, what can you bring to the table if I join you? Naruto asked. I can offer many amenities to you. However, I will keep it brief and tell you of the most important ones that I can offer to you. Danzo said back. All right, hit me with them. I'm all ears. Naruto spoke, keen to see what Danzo had to offer him. Let me start with the fact that we can offer you the resources and training facilities needed to hone the abilities of your transformations. After all, I'm sure that what I have at my disposal is far more suitable than training in the woods. Danzo replied. I ain't gonna lie, that would help me out a lot, since your boy is tired of having myself and Sasuke watch our backs when we train with my aliens. Naruto said. Furthermore, this would mean you would no longer have to worry about Minato nor Kushina growing curious about your whereabouts, even with their duties to the village, in conjunction with their training your siblings. Your training with your transformations will cause suspicion to eventually and no doubt quickly arise. From there, it will only be a matter of time before these suspicions cause your parents to send Anbu and summons alike to investigate. From there, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. Danzo told Naruto. I can, and I don't like how it goes for me in the end. Naruto replied, knowing full well the shitshow that had happened when just his father alone found out. Indeed. Moving on, we can more than work around your academy schedule in regards to your training and taking on assignments. Such things are child's play compared to what I deal with normally. Danzo said. All right, and I'm all for that. But what about when I eventually become a genin? Since I'm gonna have a whole ass sensei and people I'm with, and they're gonna get suspicious if I just up and leave. Naruto questioned the Warhawk. Don't worry about that. I already have my operatives preparing for such a thing when that arises. Danzo coolly answered back. I will definitely take your word for it. I just hope you're gonna send me on some kick-ass missions. Naruto replied as a small smirk graced the Warhawk's features. Don't worry. I am certain that I can find missions to suit your talents. Danzo told the blonde. Fine by me, as long as I get to do cool stuff on missions. Naruto said, more so happy to go on dope-ass missions. Lastly, I can make sure that you are properly compensated as a root operative. Danzo spoke, further gaining the Ultimatrix wielder's attention. For all of the hard work you will be doing as an operative, should you accept, I will make sure you are properly compensated, from it being monetary to resources needed to upkeep your housing situation, as well as gear that you possess. That and more will come to you, should you decide to join. Danzo added as the blonde had a rather thoughtful look. While this is all good and well, there is one small thing that I want done, and this is non-negotiable. Naruto told the Warhawk, who was keen to hear what the blonde had to say. I am all ears. What is it that you want done, Danzo questioned. I want Sasuke to join in my training with my aliens and just combat training in general. Naruto answered back. I've heard of young Sasuke being rather talented, from what my men have told me, in addition to the two of you being rather close. Danzo noted. Yeah, Sasuke is my boy. He's pretty much like the brother I wish I had. Naruto replied before continuing. But he has been the only person besides yourself that knows about my transformations. More importantly, he's the only person I trust to keep my secret, on top of him helping me with them. That's why I want him to be part of this with me. He is the one person I know that can have my back when it comes to this, and in a scrap. Naruto added, as he would not do this without someone who was more or less his brother in all but blood. Is he truly that important to you? Danzo asked with a scrutinizing gaze. Yes. We come as a package deal. So if you want me and my aliens, then Sasuke is along for the ride as well. I'm not gonna let my brother fall behind me. When I can share in my come up with him, Naruto answered back with an unwavering amount of resolve in his statement. If that is the case, then so be it. Who am I to deny fresh talent being added to our ranks? Even more so when it is the brother of Itachi himself, who is being spoken for. Danzo replied, as who was he to deny promising recruits to his organization? Well, if that's that, then you can consider me as part of Root, Naruto said back. Excellent. With that being said, you will have to engage in a two-part assessment. One for us to gauge your skill set without your aliens. Another to gauge what you are capable of when you are using your aliens. Danzo informed the teenage blonde. Fine by me. Just tell me when and where I have to show up, Naruto replied, all too ready to get things started. The first one will be conducted this coming Sunday. Following that, the second one will be conducted on the following Saturday. You will be escorted to both locations by an operative at 9 in the morning, and no later than. Danzo told him. I got it, crystal clear, Naruto replied. Good. Now then, one of my operatives will be outside to escort you back to your home. Danzo said back. Gotcha, and trust me, I'm not going to disappoint at all. Naruto swore to the elder statesman of an ex-shinobi. I would hope not. Until then, you are dismissed. Danzo replied as Naruto soon left his office. 2 days to get things started. That should be more than enough, Naruto remarked to himself. 2 days later. It was soon the day at hand as Naruto was at one of the various training grounds in the village that Danzo had set up for his assessment, with the person doing so being someone he very much least expected to be part of it. Wait a minute, Ami? You're going to be doing my assessment? Naruto questioned as he saw the black-haired, gray-eyed granddaughter of Danzo looking back at him. Yes, my grandfather decided that I would be the best suited to see what you're capable of. I had nothing else to do today, so I figured why not help him out. Ami answered back, straightening out her armor. Fair point. So are we going to get started now, or in a couple of minutes? Because if we're going to do this, then I want to get this started right now, Naruto asked as he got into his fighting stance. We can get started now. We are here to see how strong you are, not posture at each other. Ami replied while getting into a stance of her own. With that, Naruto bull rushed after the Warhawk's granddaughter, ready to elbow slam her into the ground, only for her to counter with a surprisingly powerful teep kick to the larger man's liver that staggered him, before running up to deliver a knee bomb to his face. The Ultimatrix wielder in question withstanding the attack and countering with a vicious headbutt that had her almost see double for a brief moment, before rushing in to tackle her into the dirt. But this was soundly put to a screeching halt when she unleashed a spinning hook kick to the temple that was followed by an elbow to the ribs. However, Naruto, not one to go down quickly, had rallied from the attack and retaliated in full effect with a chopping right to her sternum that was parried and met with knee to his stomach. Yet Naruto quickly retaliated with a thunderous overhand right that thudded against her skull. Both combatants stood back a small distance to readjust themselves before both came rushing after each other, with Naruto bounding after Ami, and Ami dashing after him like a cheetah, the two meeting in the middle to engage in a ferocious exchange of attacks. Both parties exchanged everything from kicks, elbows, knees, and punches against one another that were either blocked and viciously retaliated against in Naruto's case, or parried and swiftly countered by Ami. with neither one giving an inch to the other as they fought at a ferocious pace. With Naruto unleashing heavy overhand rights, uppercuts, hooks and side kicks to Ami, who even when parrying them had felt their crushing force behind each attack, whilst Ami was able to use her greater speed to unleash a far greater number of kicks, knees, and elbows against the larger blonde. The larger blonde growing tired of not landing any worthwhile strikes on the Warhawk's granddaughter, Naruto went into feint for a double-leg takedown that Ami was able to sidestep out of the way from, but was a setup for him to deliver a brutal uppercut to the jaw that sent her tumbling across the ground, with Ami having to quickly backflip out of the way from Naruto attempting to jump down and stomp her back in half, with the root operative then attempting a low kick to knock Naruto to the ground. Yet this was narrowly evaded thanks to him having leapt back at the last minute. Ami quickly jumped up to her feet and dashed after Naruto, once more bounded after her to unload a short yet thunderous combination of hooks and thudding jabs that, while the majority of them were deflected, the small handful that did make it through made her bones nearly creak and her head snap back from the sheer force. Yet Ami was quick to come back with a 360 reverse roundhouse kick that was followed by an axe kick to the top of Naruto's skull that nearly made him bowl over. However, the two combatants clashed once more as they caught each other with a right hook to the ribs from the larger blonde and an elbow uppercut from Ami. Finally, someone other than Sasuke who can keep up, Naruto remarked to himself. Who would have thought that Lord 4Th's eldest wouldn't suck at taijutsu, Ami said to herself as the two re-engaged with one another. The both of them engaged in another ferocious exchange of blows that had every shot fired off with the intensity of two timberwolves trying to rip each other to bloody shreds, as both were refusing to give either an inch. With Naruto using his larger frame and greater raw strength to get Ami into a clinch, a nail with a series of brutal right hooks and uppercuts to the ribs that cracked against her so hard they sounded almost like cannon fire. This continued briefly before Ami managed to get enough distance between them within the clinch to drive her knee as hard as she could into Naruto's liver, causing him to break off the clinch and back away whilst clutching at his stomach. With the Warhawk's granddaughter then pumping wind chakra into her legs for an incredible burst of speed to deliver a barrage of incredibly kick bicycle kicks to Naruto's jaw that was ended off by a hook kick to his jaw that the Ultimatrix wielder met with a chopping right to her nose. It was all throughout their fight that Ami found herself having to give credit where it was due, in terms of Naruto being incredibly proficient in taijutsu, considering that beyond his raw strength alone, he was able to constantly cut off angles for her to get distance away from him and force her into fighting him in the pocket, which combined with the dogged pressure he attacked her with from thunderous punches that staggered her, powerful kicks and knees to the body, alongside the vicious counterpunches he'd deliver with lethal intentions, had her give it up to the fact that he was nothing if not devastating in close range. Yet her thoughts were broken up as her attempt to land a spinning elbow to his temple was blocked and met with an overhand right that smashed into her nose, causing her to nearly fall flat on her ass at her newly bloodied nose. Something Naruto took full advantage of as he leaped after and speared her into the ground, where the Ultimatrix wielder quickly secured the mount on top of her and began to rain down punches on her head with the cadence of a herd of stampeding elephants. Ami was subsequently forced to shell up from the constant onslaught of punches that rained down on her, in order to prevent her face from being caved in. So in response to this, Naruto punched her in her arms so hard that the root operative nearly yelped from a bone in her arm cracking, allowing for Naruto to quickly pin it to her side and continue landing heavy power shots to her face, with Naruto continuing to pummel her with ferocious abandon until she managed to expel a considerable amount of wind chakra to blast him off of her. The granddaughter of Danzo quickly managed to rise to her feet, albeit bloodied and battered from the vicious ground and pound. However, Naruto was quick to bound after her and engage in another heated brawl that had Ami due to her damaged arm on the defensive, as Naruto, despite the numerous welts on his body, continued at his relentless pace, with the Ultimatrix wielder going at it with the fervor of a horny Jiraiya on the hunt for inspiration for his next Ika book, which was felt as he landed a short combination against Ami's abdomen that felt like sledgehammers being bashed into her gut with each blow. I'll give him credit where it's due, he's definitely passed with flying colors, Ami noted to herself as she ducked under a right hook. Now all I have to do is, Ami said before she had to dodge another hook to her head. With Ami, despite her wounded arm and battered state, managed to still put on a remarkable counter-defensive against Naruto's relentless cadence, with every punch and kick to her body being met with an equally swift elbow from her good arm, or a kick or knee to the chest and head. Yet even with all of the swift and blazingly quick counterattacks she unleashed against Naruto, the blonde before her refused to even waver under her assault, in part to a combination of his incredible durability and sheer force of will, evident when she unleashed a powerful hook kick to his temple so hard that it nearly knocked him over. Yet once again he steadied himself and retaliated with a gut-busting uppercut that she quickly dodged out of the way from and met with a high knee to his sternum. The two stared each other down at the intensive fight that had both of them bruised, semi-bloodied and battered, as Naruto, who was rarely the one to play in passivity, went yet again after Ami, in having gone for another takedown attempt via tackling her like a runaway freight train. In response, Ami nailed him with a powerful front kick to the jaw that nearly snapped his head back, as though he'd been cracked across the face like a razor wire-covered bullwhip, causing blood to leak forth from his split-open lip. With her following through with a short series of side kicks to the chest before unleashing a savage elbow uppercut to the side of his jaw. So in response, once Naruto recovered his wits about himself after a knee to his stomach, retaliated with a monstrous shovel hook to the ribs. The blow lifted her off the ground and into the air, as she felt almost all of the air in her lungs pushed out of her body before Naruto grabbed her by the legs, then wrenched her back down and sent her skidding several feet across the ground with a left hook to the jaw that knocked out a few of her wisdom teeth. Ami quickly rose up after the attack to see Naruto ready to attack once more, and was preparing to charge after her once more, if not for the fact that an audible rumbling could be heard coming from the Ultimatrix wielder. "Hey, can we call it here? I mean, not to sound unprofessional or anything, but I totally forgot to eat breakfast," Naruto asked as his stomach rumbled in need for sustenance that it was denied. "That is more than fair. After the performance you put on, I would say that you have passed with flying colors," Ami said back as she wiped her bloody nose and mouth. "That's awesome. Glad I could impress," Naruto replied. "No problem. Also, you punch extremely hard," Ami remarked as she almost felt like her jaw was gonna come off with some of those punches. "Well, I may not be able to throw my punches in bunches. However, I can throw them hard enough to rock your shit," Naruto said with pride at his raw strength lending itself to his great amount of striking power. "Anyways, well done, and good luck with the next part of your assessment," Ami replied before she disappeared in a body flicker. "Well, that was one hell of a fight. Man, I'm hungry as hell. I wonder if I can get some pancakes or something," Naruto wondered to himself as headed off in search of food. 3 days later, Naruto's house. It was a few days later as Naruto and Sasuke were hanging out at the former's house, where the Ultimatrix wielder was informing the Uchiha of the fact that soon enough they'd be a part of something awesome en route. "So how about it, Sasuke? You down for being a part of something kick-ass and awesome?" Naruto asked his longtime friend. "If this can guarantee us both getting stronger, on top of helping you master your transformations, then I see no harm in joining," Sasuke answered back. "Not to mention, we both get to fast-track our way towards being stronger than our siblings," Naruto added with a large smile. "There is that as well. To be honest with you, I just want to get strong enough so that I force Itachi to do right by his unborn children," Sasuke said with a naked amount of venom in his voice. Even now he still fails to make his family with Izumi his primary precedent regardless of his station within the village. His family should be his first and primary priority, not his constant need to be our village's lapdog. Sasuke further spoke in disdain of Itachi's prioritizing the village over his clan and soon-to-be family. "Well, you definitely got a long ways to go. Itachi is one of the strongest Uchiha in the village, for a reason, so good luck," Naruto remarked at Itachi's prowess. "I do not need luck. All I need is time and training," Sasuke replied with steel and certainty to his voice that almost made Naruto's back stiffen. "Man, Sasuke gets scary when he talks about his family," Naruto noted as he saw Sasuke's eyes briefly turn the trademark bloodshine red of the Sharingan. Hopefully, he can get his act together before you two have to slug it out. Maybe he'll come around by the time his kid gets here," Naruto said with hope. "I can only hope so as well. While I do not want to fight him, if it means getting him to act better, then so be it," Sasuke replied. "I'm pretty sure that Izumi will beat you to it. She may love Itachi, but even she has her limits. So if anyone can get your brother to act better and fly straight, then it's gonna be her," Naruto remarked. The Ultimatrix wielder had a strong feeling that Izumi's patience with Itachi would only go so far before it came to a head, considering that when you're raising a child by yourself while your significant other was always at work, it tended to put a large strain on things. I mean, just think about it. Do you really think that she's going to let him be on missions like he is, without something giving in the process? Naruto asked. That is a fair point. Knowing Izumi, I give it until the end of the year at the very latest. Once that happens, Itachi is going to be in for a reckoning, Sasuke said back in knowing that it was going to be a matter of if and not when for his brother. Exactly, so for now, let's just chill and let things with them sort themselves out, Naruto spoke. Fair enough. Other than my issues with Itachi, when and what will you be doing during the second stage of this assessment of yours? Sasuke asked after taking a brief moment to recollect his thoughts. I have until Sunday to be ready for what's getting thrown at me, Naruto answered back. But in terms of what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be taking out some idiots from the hidden waterfall. Apparently, they've been getting too big for their britches with this hero water they have. So for my test, I gotta take out a group of Chunin and Jonin that are headed back from a mission. Naruto informed the Uchiha of what he was up against. Are you sure you handle that? Even with your transformations, that is going to be a formidable threat to face, Sasuke noted. Oh, I know, Sasuke. In fact, I'm fully prepared for the challenge ahead of me because I'm not about to get caught lacking out here. Not when everyone's an enemy who can beat my ass if I'm not careful. Naruto replied with a fully confident smile that he could pull off his assessment with flying colors. That would be an understatement. Between what was the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, Darui of the Storm style, and even Orochimaru himself, there are a legion of powerful threats out there. That isn't even taking into account what is out there, Sasuke said in reference to both what was outside the village and what was in the stars beyond their home. Believe me, I'm well aware of aliens that are gonna come to fuck our home up. That's why I'm hoping Lord Danzo and I can work something out, because I want us to be ready for any and everything, Naruto replied. Hopefully the time for extraterrestrial threats comes far, far into the future. I don't know about you, but I would rather not put our safety in the hands of Heiase and Nayaya, Sasuke said with the blonde shapeshifter nodding in agreement. The only thing those two would get us is our butts handed to us by aliens. All it takes is them getting backed into a corner, and before we know it, they're hulking out with Nine Tails power in no time, which means we're doubly fucked on both ends. Naruto responded in knowing how quickly things would go from sugar to shit with those two. I swear those two are more of a liability than they're worth, Naruto said in distrust of his siblings should shit go down. Then you should hope that we will not be partnered with them on a joint mission. Otherwise, the worst will come to pass, and it will be downhill from there, Sasuke replied. Believe me, if my father has his way about it, he'll try every which way he can to have my future genin team be up close and personal with them. To be honest, I won't doubt it if the first time we get our big important mission, we're stuck with the twins, Naruto said back in knowing that if the Uzumaki Dream Team couldn't happen, then Minato and Kushina would push for the next best thing. Perhaps Lord Danzo will intercede in that instance. He does possess a large amount of pull in the village, Sasuke brought up. I'd hope so. The man does have a whole lot of clout in the village. From being a hell of a shinobi in his day, however, even he has his limits, and at the end of the day, my dad is still the Hokage, so he does have the final say at the end of it, Naruto replied while also acknowledging the elephant in the room. With said elephant being that even with all of the political and social power that the Warhawk had amassed over the decades, that as acting Hokage, his father still had the final say in how things would go in the village and in concerns to the missions that shinobi in it undertook. Hence why if Minato really desired it, Then at the end of the day Naruto and his genin team would be forced to go on a mission with the twins, and whoever the poor schmuck was that with them on a mission, even if it was something that would spell certain doom in the long run. Do you really think he would do that? Even Lord Fourth wouldn't be that blind to those walking time bombs? Sasuke asked. Don't get me wrong, Sasuke. My father is a brilliant man, and someone who more than earned the Hokage hat. However, he's also someone who has the habit of looking at his family through rose-tinted glasses. So to him, it'll seem like it's no big deal to have them join us on a mission. Naruto answered back. In that case, let us hope our rise through the ranks comes swiftly. That way, we can have an excuse to not be with them on a mission, Sasuke said. Now you're talking. A lot of doors open up once you have a flak jacket on, Naruto replied as he looked down at his Ultimatrix. I just hope that they'll lead to me living my best life. Naruto added in, briefly envisioning the missions of epic proportion he'd soon go on. I'm sure they will. In the meantime, focus on that assessment of yours. It is going to come faster than you know, Sasuke told the blonde before him. Thanks for reminding me to stay on target. This also reminds me, I have to figure out how I'm gonna do this. I've got 3 days, and time like that goes very fast. Naruto thanked the Uchiha for the reminder. Not a problem at all, Naruto. Just come back in one piece, Sasuke said as he rose from his seat. Don't worry, Sasuke. I've got this all under control, Naruto replied as Sasuke gave him a small smirk back. You had better, were Sasuke's parting words before exiting Naruto's home. A squad of badass ninja from the hidden waterfall to use as target practice. This is gonna be one heck of a Sunday, Naruto remarked to himself with a grin at what was to come. Soon enough the day of the last part of Naruto's assessment had come, and the blonde shapeshifter couldn't be happier to have a real field test of what his alien forms could do when pitted against an enemy. So when the time came to travel to the location of his quarry to crush and prove his worth to be part of the root organization, he was ready to show what he was capable of. Land of Waterfall. It was barely 8 in the morning as Naruto alongside Torun were at the campsite where the Takegakure shinobi were finishing packing up at, with Naruto currently selecting which alien he would use to get it started. You will have approximately 30 minutes to dispose of the targets. Good luck, Naruto, Torun said to the Ultimatrix wielder. Thanks, but I'm pretty sure I've got this covered, Naruto replied as he transformed into Reverb. I hope you're ready, because I'm about to rock this joint, Reverb said before rushing off for somewhere to hide, with him quickly making a small horde of clones that he had quickly surrounded the perimeter of the encampment that was packing up their gear. When all of them had finished fanning out to cover the full expanse of it, that was when they began their attack. Meanwhile, the Takegakure ninja were chatting amongst themselves and talking over the success of their mission while they were packing everything up. They were soon assaulted by the ultrasonic screams that blasted the area with such force the ground cracked and blew apart around them. The Takegakure ninja had to cover their ears against the harsh sonic attack and quickly seek safety elsewhere as they felt their insides become shredded by the powerful sound waves, and their blood vessels burst like overripened watermelons dropped from a high rise, with the Jonin managing to escape the radius of the field of sound waves that blew apart their equipment within their campsite, while the Chunin and lesser Jonin found themselves ultimately succumbing to the sound waves, as their blood vessels ruptured and their innards soon popped like overfilled water balloons from the concussive force of the attack. While the concussed, bloodied and deafened Jonin made for a quick escape with their medics in tow and following close behind. Reverb in the meanwhile was quickly reassembling his clones back into himself, before he transformed into Mantabomber, flapped his wings to soar into the skies above to give chase to his quarry. Something that didn't take the amphibian too long to locate them given his immense flight speed, as he saw them hole up trying to recuperate from the sneak attack, whilst their medics were busy at work to heal their injuries and restore their hearing. Unfortunately for them, Mantabomber had other plans, as he leveled a neuroshock blast at one of the medical ninja, who were so caught up in healing the wounded Jonin that they didn't have time to register the basketball-sized hole that was blown through their chest, with another neuroshock blast coming in to swiftly and literally disarm another Jonin, before a follow-through blast decapitated said Jonin. The surviving Jonin and medic ninja watching on in shock and horror at the swiftness with which their comrades were dispatched. so to avoid being cut down any further they quickly dashed into the tree line ahead of them, in hopes of using it as cover against the unknown assailant. Unfortunately for them, their assailant was far faster than them, on top of having an aerial advantage that he used to pick them out amongst the thick foliage and cut them down with the ease a tiger with bite through a deer's skull. With their attempts to hide or even counter the attacks from MangaBomber proving more futile than anything, considering that with his far superior speed he could easily evade and outmaneuver their ranged jutsu, and all the while being able to freely and swiftly retaliate with a rapid-fire barrage Neuroshock blasts. The situation was made all the worse by the fact that due to the relentless pressure of MangaBomber's aerial assault, the Takagakure ninja were forced into a retreat where they couldn't even get to their hero's water or risk getting dismembered or having a hole blow through their chests and skulls. The amphibians' barrage of attacks was so intense that they had to hide underneath a large grouping of trees and use earth jutsu to provide further cover and defense to shield themselves so as to have some means of respite against the continuous onslaught. Yet after nearly 2 consecutive minutes of MangaBomber firing at them, and seeing that he was getting nowhere as he couldn't quite get a decisive attack against them, on top of the fact that his time was running out, he decided to see how good these Jonin were against some real firepower as he started charging power to his next Neuroshock blast against them, which grew larger and more compact by the second to the point the space around him became tinted in brilliant neon green. "Let's see them dodge this," MangaBomber said as the Neuroshock blast began to arc with spiraling tendrils of energy. "Finally, it's over. I think we finally outran whatever the fuck that thing was," a blue-haired tacky Jonin said, relieved to see the barrage had stopped. "I don't think it's close to being over," another Jonin said as he looked up to see a brilliant green light in the sky. "So, I think now would be a good idea to use the hero water we still have left. Otherwise, we're gonna be dead men walking." The same Jonin spoke, as while the attack in question didn't have any chakra, they could still see it packed a lot of power. "You heard the man. Unless the lot of you want to die, drink up and prepare for the worst." The lead Jonin spoke, his gray eyes looking up at the ever-expanding bright green light. "Let's see them stop this," MangaBomber said to himself with a devious grin. Within not even half-second passing before a beam of searing green radiance escaped from his eyes and tail, and raced towards the group of Takagakure shinobi at incredible speeds, leaving very little time for those that consumed the hero water to erect a 4.5-story tall and 12-foot thick barrier of water and surrounded by hardened stone and earth nearly as tall. Once MangaBomber's attack connected against the barrier, everything in a 400-foot radius erupted into brilliant green light that voraciously obliterated anything within its reach into complete obliteration. Granted, the attack barely lasted a minute, yet the damage it dealt to its surroundings was incredibly evident, as anything in the detonation zone barring the Takagakure ninja was reduced to smoldering rubble, with not even so much as the twigs and insects that would litter the ground survived. Yet in the midst of it were the shinobi in question, half of whom were turned into partially charred skeletons in the blast, whilst the rest sustained considerable burns and were panting like dogs from the fact that keeping up the barrier for so long against said attack had exhausted a rather hefty portion of their chakra reserves. MangaBomber, in seeing this, decided to dive down at hypersonic speeds for a strafing run, in delivering a blindingly quick series of Neuroshock blasts that reduced their surviving medic ninja into Swiss cheese, with her body being blasted apart to the point where it was a bloody, unrecognizable lump of flesh and bones. The 2 Jonin, on the other hand, met similar fates, with one who tried to dodge out of the way having their legs blown to smithereens, while his compatriot had his head blasted into a cauterized stump, with neither of them noticing MangaBomber flying again to finish the job at even higher speeds, as he used a particularly powerful Neuroshock blast through the heart of a blonde-haired, gray-eyed Jonin who skidded across the ground from the sheer force behind it, all before delivering another Neuroshock blast that blasted the dismembered Jonin's head to smithereens, leaving only the leader of the small squad of Takagakure shinobi were left, his eyes darting frantically for any sign of MangaBomber's presence. "Time to finish this. The last thing I need is for this fucker to start getting wise and making counters," MangaBomber said to himself. The amphibian flew high into the air and proceeded to dive down once more at high hypersonic speeds, before turning into Painwheel and coming towards the remaining Takagakure shinobi at such speeds that he might as well have been a near imperceivable blue and black blur. With not even a microsecond later before Painwheel made contact, and reduced the poor soul into such a bloody mess that the air was misted crimson from the pulverizing of the last Takagakure shinobi. Once the blood-covered Ultimatrix wielder stopped his path of destruction, he immediately turned back into Mantabomber to fly back to Torun, who after informing him of the decimation of the targets, had done so all in 5 minutes and 27 seconds, having set a new record for the quickest assessment time to date. So with that ego booster done and out of the way, Torun and Mantabomber flew back to Kanhoa in good spirits of the latter's accomplishment, and the fact that this would no doubt put him firmly within Root's ranks. 3 days later, Naruto's house. It was a few days after Naruto passed the assessment with flying colors. Did he invite Sasuke and a somewhat bandaged-up Ami to his house to celebrate the occasion, although the Ultimatrix wielder was in a good mood for a separate reason of his own. Congratulations, Naruto. Now you and your friend here are part of one of the greatest organizations within the Hidden Leaf. Ami said whilst a drone bought them glasses and a pitcher of lemonade. I told you that I'd pass your guys' tests without a problem. I mean, was there really any doubt that I could? Naruto asked with a broad smile on his face. Don't get ahead of yourself, Uzumaki. You may have passed the test that Grandpa set up for you. But when you get put on an actual do-or-die mission, things will be far, far different. Ami replied. She does bring up a good point. I mean, even with your aliens, there's still a lot of enemy shinobi that you are going to deal with. So don't get a big head. Sasuke spoke to the Ultimatrix wielder. The very last thing I need is for you to get in over your head, because you overestimate yourself, Sasuke added. Considering that I unlocked a new alien, I'd say that I'm doing pretty fantastic. Naruto told the two, with Ami nearly doing a spit take at this information. You have a new what now? Ami questioned in surprise. Yup, found out about him on Sunday. When I was messing around with this, he's pretty cool looking too. Naruto told the two before taking a large gulp of lemonade. If you want I can show him off to you guys, Naruto asked them. I don't see why not. Besides, it took you long enough to unlock one, Sasuke said whilst sipping his lemonade. Go for it. I gotta see this. Ami spoke in agreement with Sasuke. Alright, then, get ready for the brand spankin' debut of the one and only Phantasma, Naruto said as he scrolled through his aliens and soon enough transformed in brilliant neon blue light. Once the light cleared, a 2 meters tall ghost-like creature appeared with powder blue skin and black cracks that sprawled across his body, with a quintet of dark sapphire-colored eyes on his face, while the Ultimatrix symbol lay across his sternum, combined with his mouth being constantly set in a constantly clenched grimace. Yet Phantasma had other monstrous features on his person, such as his skin tearing open to reveal 2-foot-long bone claws that could rend a man's flesh open with ease, thorny white and icy blue tendrils tearing from it on his shoulders, upper and mid-back, and gnarled several-inch-long bone spurs on his elbows. In tandem with the fact that his first layer of torn skin hung off him like a tattered insane asylum patient's uniform, the ghastly tail that waved behind him, the manacles and chains around his wrists and neck, alongside his constantly unblinking eyes made for an incredibly chilling appearance. This is definitely going to haunt my nightmares. Just what even is that thing? Sasuke said, feeling his bones run glacially cold at looking at the sight of Phantasma. That's a fucking understatement. I don't know if I should be terrified or run and call an exorcist, probably both. Ami replied as she felt herself unable to look away from the sight of the ghastly alien. Here, I thought that Phantasma being able to scare people was just a fluke. Phantasma spoke. What did you do, Naruto? Sasuke asked the ectonurate. I may have gotten bored, and decided to use my new ghost powers to scare the living hell out of people. In my defense, it was really funny. Phantasma answered back as their grimace turned into an incredibly sinister smile. Is that why my father has been hearing about complaints of people seeing a ghost roaming around the village? Sasuke questioned as Phantasma's smile only grew wider. To be fair, Sasuke, I really wanted to mess with Iruka and Mizuki-sensei for ages. It just so happened that I got an incredibly scary and golden opportunity to do just that. Phantasma replied with an insidious chuckle that sounded more akin to the demented wailing chortles of a madman. I would ask what kind of ghost stuff you can do, but at the same time, I'm too scared to even want to know, Ami said, still disturbed by Phantasma's otherworldly visage. Mizuki and Aruka-sensei found out some of the stuff I could do yesterday. Let's just say that they're afraid of the dark from now on. Phantasma told her with another small bout of spine-chilling laughter escaping his form. I don't even want to know what you showed them. That fucked them up that badly, Ami said as the implications were enough to greatly curb her curiosity. I think I speak for both myself and Ami when I ask that you turn back to normal. I'd rather not look at whatever this is, Sasuke replied, in disdain for the fact that Phantasma's form would be etched into his mind. All right, fine. I think he's awesome, by the way. Phantasma spoke before slamming down on the Ultimatrix and turning back to normal. Still feels weird when I transform back and forth, Naruto said with an involuntary shudder going through his body. At least this confirms our theory about there being more transformations in that device of yours, Sasuke remarked while Naruto sat back down. Now if only I could figure out a way to unlock more of these guys, because I really want to see what other cool stuff I can turn into. Maybe some cool giant monster that shoots death lasers, or some badass plant monster that can fuck people up with nature itself, Naruto said as he looked at the Ultimatrix and all of the nigh infinite possibilities of what he could eventually turn into. Focus on mastering what you have now, and then you can worry about unlocking more transformations. The last thing we need is for you to spread yourself thin, because of your excitement, Sasuke advised to the blonde. Fair point. I'm just stoked to know I can have all these super cool transformations at my disposal, Naruto replied in hardly contained excitement of unlocking Phantasma. Look at it this way. You're going to have all the opportunities to test out your aliens, now that you've made into root, Ami told him as Naruto once more smiled as Ami took a small drink of her lemonade. You're certainly right about that, so cheers to my getting a new alien and passing my assessments, Naruto said. Sure, I see no problem why we shouldn't drink to that, Sasuke spoke. Well, you did knock it out of the park both times, so let's do it then. Here's to Naruto Uzumaki, long may he reign, Ami said as they both raised their glasses and drank. Man, my life is looking awesome right now. I just hope I get even more kick-ass transformations, Naruto said to himself, as he and his companions spent the rest of the day drinking and dicking around. The next day, Kanhoa. It was the next day later as Naruto was visiting with his grandpa Dan, as the former of the two was in incredibly good spirits given recent events, and as such felt he should share in the good vibes with the retired Jonin. You seem to be in a pretty good mood, Naruto. What's the special occasion? Dan asked in seeing the rather elated blonde. I don't know how to explain it, but lately everything's been going my way. Hell, I haven't even had to bother with my family in months. Plus, I've got great friends I hang out with. So basically, everything's coming up awesome, Grandpa, Naruto answered back in good spirits. That is wonderful news, Naruto. I'm just glad you're doing all right, Dan said as the two continued to walk around the village. Although, I still have to wonder how Minato, or at the very least Kushina, hasn't noticed your absence, Dan added. You would think that those two would notice their own child gone from their own home, Dan thought to himself in finding such a thing rather odd. It's simple. I may not be great at ninjutsu or seals, but if there's one thing I am ace at, it's building machinery. Well, that and my being really, really good at fighting, Naruto told the ghost of Kanhoa. So you built some contraption to make sure they wouldn't notice? Dan questioned, as Naruto gave him a thumbs up. Yep, one part audio system I have to tell them I'm gonna be out with Sasuke and the Uchihas, and one part super strong image projector that I made a while ago, that appears over a robot I made, which means that for now, I can pretty much get away with not having to see them, Naruto answered back. All courtesy of having Crabshocker and Tech Goblin to make all this cool shit for me, Naruto said to himself, thankful for the two aliens in particular. That's rather clever of you, Naruto. Here I thought I'd seen everything with how much the kids used to sneak out, Dan replied, as Naruto's explanation was by far the most complex he'd heard. There are a few hitches in it. There's the fact that since it's purely mechanical, it doesn't have chakra that can be sensed. That's a pretty big problem when most of your family are sensor types. Then on top of that, if someone hits it with lightning jutsu, then it could short out the projection, and then it's all downhill from there. Naruto said back. Honestly, if it weren't for the fact that my folks were so busy, my plan probably would have been found out a lot faster by now, Naruto added. Since even Naruto could fully admit to the fact that his plan to stall his family's notice of him being gone wasn't foolproof by a mile, as all it would take is one glitch or the use of his siblings or even his mother's sensory abilities, and he was more than likely screwed. To be fair, Naruto, what are you going to do once your secret has been found out? Because, whether you like it or not, it's going to be an absolute mess to deal with. Dan remarked. I know that. Besides, what can they do about it? I've already moved out and got all my stuff settled in my new place. So if they want to raise hell about it, then by all means they can go right ahead. Naruto flippantly responded. Plus, you'd think they would be fine with it, especially since they can devote more time towards preparing them for the worst of what's out there, Naruto said, albeit much more to himself. Well, if they do ask how everything went down, Tsunade and I will step in and help handle things. We are your godparents after all, and it would look terrible on us if we didn't come to your defense. Dan said back with a smile that only a father could show. I appreciate it a lot more than you think, Grandpa Dan. That reminds me, when will Masako get back? I heard she was out on some super cool mission, Naruto asked on the whereabouts of his cousin. It shouldn't be too long before she's back. I wouldn't put it past them to go over and above, just so she can get even more of a joyride out of it. Between Tsunade and I, she certainly takes after myself during my younger days. Dan answered back, with a mix of pride and slight worry towards his eldest child. Man, Masako is such a badass. I swear, she's in my top 10 of people I want to be like, once I get to be a Chunin or Jonin. Naruto replied with stars in his eyes. I swear you two are too much alike sometimes. If it wasn't for the age difference, you two would have been the biggest terrors in all of Kanhoa, Dan remarked. And it would be awesome, granted. We'd probably make Dad have an ulcer, or 20, but it'd still be totally worth it, Naruto said with a malicious grin. Sometimes I don't know who would be worse, you or the twins, Dan wondered. It'd definitely be me, because between all three of us, at least I'm not the one who's one hissy fit away from hulking out and screwing up a mission, Naruto replied. I honestly can't disagree with you. They may be being trained by Jiraiya and your parents. However, even I can recognize that the two of them will become easy pickings against people who know what they're doing. After all, Naruto, Kanhoa isn't the only village with Jinchuriki, Dan said in agreement with his godson. Oh, I know. Which is why I'll be ready and then some, the moment I have to scrap with them, Naruto replied. I will definitely take your word for it. In the meantime, how about we get something to eat, my treat? Dan offered to the Ultimatrix wielder. Sounds great, Naruto replied as the two headed off towards the nearest restaurant. 5 days later, Root HQ. The following week had come as Naruto and Sasuke were training at the Root HQ, with Ami working to counter the attacks of Crystal Fist. Sometimes, I truly forget how powerful your transformations are, Sasuke remarked as he had to once again dodge another crystalline fist that erupted from the ground. You ain't seen nothing yet. Check this shit out, Crystal Fist said back as he raised his fists into the air, and the ground soon began to shake and rumble. Sasuke had to once more dodge and leap out of the way as a quartet of crystalline dragons came bursting out of the ground, ready to tear him limb from limb, and as such forcing the Uchiha to move swiftly and quickly with the use of his Sharingan. The dragons quickly racing towards him with great speed that chased after her like heat-seeking missiles, that curved and swerved at any angle possible to try and tear him to bloody ribbons like a pack of rabid timberwolves. This continued onwards before Sasuke used a fire style to unleash a powerful gale force wind that had enough concussive force behind it to greatly crack apart half of the dragons, and in seeing this followed it up with a lightning style. Violet lightning that was able to destroy the dragons in their entirety. However, the crystal shards that once comprised them quickly flew and compressed together to form a massive glaive that dive-bombed towards her, with Ami having to leap out of the way or risk being impaled by the construct in question. Yet when Sasuke touched back down to see where the Ultimatrix wielder was, he had saw no trace of him around, their eyes scanning every which way for where he could have possibly gone, everywhere except below. As soon enough, a pair of familiar deep azure hands of Crystal Fist burst out of the ground to grab him by the waist, before subsequently power bombing them into the ground, where with another wave of Crystal Fist's hands he was wrapped up from the neck down in thick foot-long chains of crystal. "So how's that for getting creative?" Crystal Fist asked as Sasuke looked up at him. "Not bad at all, although if you hadn't gone underground like a punk, I would have had you dead to rights with my fire jutsu." Sasuke answered back in seeing no use to struggle against the heavy-duty restraints. "I know, but I'm not letting you get any of those off. I may not be a rocket scientist, but even I know it's a stupid call to let anyone get off hand signs for jutsu. That's why I've got plans on plans for that bullshit," Crystal Fist told her before waving his arms and causing the bindings to dissipate. "Good to know for next time," Sasuke said while Crystal Fist transformed back to normal. "I do have a question that I've been meaning to ask for some time," Sasuke asked. "Shoot," Naruto replied. "How come you never used any jutsu with that transformation or any of your transformations? I couldn't even sense anything with my Sharingan," Sasuke inquired, having never seen him use a single jutsu or even use chakra for his attacks. "That's because a while back, when I first started using them, I realized that they don't even have a chakra network," Naruto told her. "Really? I figured that once you transformed into one of these aliens, that you would still retain your ability to utilize chakra," Sasuke said back in surprise at this information. "Here's the thing you have to understand, Sasuke. When I turn into one of these guys, I'm turning into a completely different species. Which, as you've probably guessed, whatever I turn into isn't gonna have what we have because they didn't grow to have one. Hell, I'm pretty sure a good chunk of them would be incompatible with a chakra network to begin with." Naruto explained in his reasoning as to why none of his aliens had the ability to use chakra. "Besides, it's not all bad. It just means that I can sneak up on sensors like my mom and the twins. They can't really sense something that doesn't have any chakra," Naruto added as a plus to his alien's inability to use chakra. "That is a pretty good way to look at it. It is rather strange to know you cannot use chakra whatsoever while transformed," Sasuke remarked in seeing this as nothing short of an oddity. "I don't. If anything, this is a plus for me. Let's say someone tries to slap a seal to shut off my chakra. All I gotta do is turn into Doomfire or Blind Spot. Then from there, I get to fuck their shit up. Not to mention all of the sneak attacks I can pull off on top of it. So if anything, I can only see nothing but positives from not being able to use chakra when I transform," Naruto responded in seeing nothing but pros in that regard. "I won't argue with you on that subject. I am just surprised to hear about this is all," Sasuke said back, as something without chakra was wholly new territory to him. "Well, I think of it this way. We're gonna be able to come up with some dope maneuvers when we go on missions together. I mean, think about it, Sasuke. I can hit them while they don't see me coming, and you can come and clean house while I wreck shop, and vice versa," Naruto replied with a grin on his face. "When you add in the additional weaponry you've been working on, I say we will be able to decimate most if not all of our enemies, that is if we play our cards right," Sasuke said. Between the advantage Naruto's aliens had at being unable to be tracked by sensors on two of the various gadgets and armaments he was building, Sasuke had to agree that the ever-expanding advantages they had thanks to the varied arsenal of the Ultimatrix wielder became ever more vast by the day. That's not to even mention that Lord Danzo said he'd set me up with a factory of my own, to fast-track more of my stuff. All I gotta do is get some worker drones and machines built, and he'll supply me with materials," Naruto told the Uchiha with a broad grin on his face. "He agreed to give you a factory that quickly?" Sasuke asked. "Yep. When I mentioned that I could make some sick-ass gear for his root agents, he was fully on board for the idea of speeding this up. So before I know it, I'm gonna have my own factory that's gonna be getting started up soon," Naruto answered back, with contained elation in his voice. "That's pretty great news. Do you know when this factory will be up and running? Sasuke inquired. Not until October. It's gonna take a pretty long while before everything is operational. But once it is, we're gonna get new gear pumped out with a quickness. Ah man, it's gonna be great. Naruto told the Uchiha with a grin that grew even wider at the thought of all of what could be built. But other than all that good stuff, how about we get back to training? We've got this place for another hour and a half, so we may as well use it. Naruto said to the Uchiha as he went to select another alien. I'm ready when you are, Naruto. Sasuke said back while Naruto transformed into Dash Raptor. How about we do some high-speed taijutsu training, Sasuke? I want to stress test how fast the Sharingan can keep up with me. Dash Raptor spoke as he got into a fighting stance. Then what are you waiting for, Naruto? Let's do this. Sasuke replied as his eyes once more turned the bloodshine red of the Sharingan. If you say so, just don't get mad when I'm running circles around you. Dash Raptor said back before rushing after Sasuke at incredible speeds. At this rate, I'll have my Sharingan at full strength in no time, Sasuke said to himself as he ran as fast as he could to meet the Kinsillaran. It was coming towards the latter half of July, and as such was the approaching birthday of none other than Sasuke, who was both delighted and annoyed by the fact that his 17th birthday would be here before he knew it. On one hand, he was delighted since it meant getting to have his family, clansmen, and moreover Naruto, Ami, and Uncle Obito to celebrate it with him. Yet on the other hand he was annoyed because it was yet another year where Itachi wouldn't make it, and he'd have to once again hear his family make another excuse for him. This wasn't even compounded by the fact that Hayase and Yamato wanted to show up there, just to make themselves known, and as such give the young Uchiha another headache to add other than his absentee brother. Uchiha Compound. It was after lunch as Sasuke was talking with his father about Itachi among other things that was an ongoing subject with the younger of the Uchiha brothers. I still find it hard to believe that you feel that way about Itachi, Fugaku said. Can you honestly blame me for feeling this way about him? At this point he's more of a stranger than my own brother nowadays. Sasuke responded. He's barely here as it is. Izumi sees more of Shisui and Uncle Obito and I than her own husband. Moreover, the man may be an absolute prodigy. Yet when it comes to his family, and being there enough to matter, the man fails at it spectacularly. Sasuke said in scathing disdain of Itachi's constant putting forth the village over his own flesh and blood. At this point, it feels as if it's anything related to the clan. It is almost like pulling teeth with him. Yet whenever the village calls on him, he's almost immediately at their beck and call. Sasuke remarked. While I can understand your feelings, especially after how many of your mother's birthdays he conveniently forgot about, because he was needed on a mission, we do have to remember his position as an Anbu captain. Something such as that isn't anything to be taken lightly. Fugaku told his son in begrudging defense of his eldest. I would understand and be more accepting of his position in Anbu, if it weren't for the fact that Shisui is in a similar position, yet he manages everything just fine. Even Uncle Obito, who is one of our village's strongest jonin next to Might Guy and Kakashi, goes on many high-caliber missions, on top of being a recently made jonin sensei. Yet those two make more than enough time for the clan and their significant others honestly. It just seems like the clan may as well be second-class citizens in comparison to the village when it comes to Itachi's behavior. Sasuke refuted. Even I can't refute that. Shisui and Obito, alongside your brother, have been the pride of our clan. Even still those two are always here when our clan needs them to be. Fugaku replied in agreement. In fact, Obito when he isn't with Jurihan, is the one I can depend upon the most when it comes to clan matters. Who would have thought that he of all people would become one of my most trusted confidants within our clan? Fugaku added, at the fact that Obito made for a surprisingly effective right-hand man. Precisely the point. It's his continuing to favor the village over his own family that has me worried when Izumi gives birth in a few months. I'd rather not have to explain to my nephew why his father isn't there for him 90% of the time, or why he isn't there to help him train, or see him graduate from the academy. Sasuke said back in concern for his unborn nephew. You are not the only one, Sasuke, as much as I can respect your brother's devotion to the village, and have incredible pride for what he has accomplished. However, even I am growing tired of him constantly disregarding our clan," Fugaku said. "It honestly seems as though he has forgotten that he not only has duties to Kanhoa, but to his family as well," Fugaku added. The Uchiha patriarch, growing ever more irritated that Itachi's constantly putting the village over his family, was causing his bonds with them to suffer, seeing as how at this point not only was he practically a ghost at the compound. It was to a point that Makoto, Sasuke and Obito alongside a small handful of Uchiha clansmen had to do a rotation to help Izumi with her pregnancy, as with Itachi being absent 85% of the time. It meant that the clan was forced to step in so that his wife wouldn't have to shoulder things by herself. At this point, I won't even be surprised if he not only missed my birthday this week, but if he also missed the birth of my nephew," Sasuke flippantly replied, yet the scathing undertone wasn't missed by his father. "Do you really think he would miss the birth of his own child? Itachi is many things, but that level of neglectful he is not," Fugaku said back. "I would hope he isn't. However, with his current track record of choosing missions for the village, instead of taking so much as a single day off to be with his wife, or you and mother, it is certainly within the realm of possibility," Sasuke spoke, as while he hated to say this, even he couldn't deny the truth of it. "Better yet, I may as well make a betting pool off it and make a killing off the odds of him not showing up," Sasuke said to himself on a more somber note. "Then let us hope that it will not come to pass, Izumi, and your mother would be crushed if you were not there for my grandson's birth," Fugaku replied, knowing full well Makoto would react in that instance. "If that happens, then I'm certain that if I don't lay into him about it, then Uncle Obito will," Sasuke said in regards to his future sensei. "I swear between him and Lord 4Th's wife, it is almost dead even for who has the fiercest temper in Kanhoa," Sasuke added, knowing that Obito's easygoing nature belied a near draconic level of anger. "If that happens, then Shisui and myself will probably have to hold him back. He is nothing if not an absolute menace when he is angry," Fugaku remarked. "Hopefully, he will straighten out by then, although I sincerely doubt that he will," Sasuke replied. "I hope so too. The last thing I want is for Itachi's constant focus on the village to not only further alienate him from the clan, but have their love of him turn to resentment for his actions," Fugaku said, seeing as how the Uchihas weren't going to stand for Itachi's loyalties waning toward the clan. "That, father, is all up to him. I can't make him act any differently than you, mother, Izumi, Shisui, or Uncle Obito can. That is why, if his actions end up in the clan resenting him, then that is solely on him," Sasuke replied as he stood up from his seat on the porch. "Anyways, I'm going to go train for a few hours. I need to do something to take my mind off of Itachi," Sasuke told the elder Uchiha. "All right, just be back in time for dinner. Your mother and I are making your favorite," Fugaku said before Sasuke rushed off to the nearest training ground. "I still can't believe my youngest son is becoming a young man. It feels like yesterday he was learning his first fire jutsu," Fugaku remarked to himself as he saw Sasuke rush off and away. 2 days later, Kanhoa, Naruto's house. It was a few days later as Sasuke had decided to stop by Naruto's house to visit, with the shape-shifting blonde having something in his hands by the time he entered the living room. "Oh hey, Sasuke. Since you're already here, I figure I may as well give you your birthday present early," Naruto said to the teenage Uchiha. "Just give me a moment to get it for you," Naruto added as he whistled, and what looked like a robotic Wolverine made of scrap metal came bounding down from his bedroom. "What even is that?" Sasuke asked, looking at the automaton. "This is one of my scrap droids. Granted, some of my beefier ones to watch over the house are still in progress, but other than that, they make for fantastic retrieval drones," Naruto answered back before giving an order to the robot to get Sasuke's present. "How strong are you making these robots to safeguard your house?" Sasuke asked as the robotic Wolverine ran off. "Enough so that if anyone who isn't an upper-tier Chunin or low-grade Jonin will get shredded by them, that's without the Chimera Metallica maneuver I need to work on for them," Naruto replied with a large grin over his pet projects. "Should I even want to know what that is?" Sasuke questioned with a raised brow. "Let's just say that it's going to be something super awesome. Oh man, is it going to be awesome when it makes its debut," Naruto said with the laugh that gave off mad scientist vibes. Right? So you're still coming to my birthday party this Saturday, right? Sasuke asked the Ultimatrix wielder. Of course, man. There's no way in hell I'd miss it, Naruto said back. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, Naruto. At least I get to have one brother show up. Sasuke said. The underlining bite regarding Itachi wasn't missed by Naruto. Let me guess, he's out on yet another important mission, Naruto surmised. Yeah. Although, he promised to make it back in time for my birthday. I will believe it when I see it. So for now, I'm cautiously pessimistic on his showing up. Sasuke replied. Don't you mean cautiously optimistic? Naruto said, slightly confused. I said what I said, Naruto. Sasuke indignantly responded. Anyways, my little mini-servant is back with your present, Naruto said as his robotic Wolverine returned with a sheathed sword in its jaws. I know you're pretty good with a sword and all, so I figured why not use my transformations to make you a super cool one. Naruto added as he took the sword from the robot's jaws and handed it to Sasuke. I didn't even know you could make swords. Did I miss the fact that you're a high-quality blacksmith? Sasuke said in surprise. I'm not one. But that wouldn't hurt to pick up as a side hustle. But thanks to my smarter-than-hell aliens, I can cheat code my way to doing it. Naruto replied as Sasuke unsheathed his sword. The sword was that of a giant that had a 2-foot-and-a-quarter-long platinum-colored blade with what looked like black circuit-like markings across its length. The guard was a blue and silver version of the Uchiha clan symbol. The hilt having navy-colored leather wrappings upon its length that was made for Sasuke's aggressive single-handed style of swordplay. With said Uchiha then proceeded to give it a few test swings and felt that the sword almost felt like a perfect match with every flourish and motion made. There's some cool stuff you can do with it if you put chakra into it. However, I'd rather you practice that at home. I'd rather not get my place jacked up by your new sword, Naruto told the Uchiha, who continued to do a few more flourishes with his new weapon. It is definitely a fantastic sword, Naruto. You definitely outdid yourself with this, Sasuke said before sheathing his sword. Thanks, Sasuke. Although my only regret is that I don't have the time or the materials to make you some kick-ass armor. Now that would really put everything together. I could see it now, Naruto replied, envisioning Sasuke in some high-tech battle armor of his own making. I wonder if I can install a jetpack when I make it. Ideas for later, Naruto noted to himself. The armor can wait for later. Right now, I am more than happy to have the sword, Sasuke said back in delight and contentment of his new weapon. Thank you, it's nice to know my hard work paid off, Naruto said, proud of his handiwork. Look at it this way. If being a shinobi doesn't work, then you definitely have a future as a blacksmith, Sasuke replied while Naruto cracked a smile. Why not do both? There's nothing that says I can't, Naruto said, since the idea wasn't so bad the more he thought about it. If you do go through with it, just remember to give me a discount, Sasuke with a dry playfulness in his voice. Of course, man. What's family for? Naruto replied as he and Sasuke fist bumped with each other. Indeed. Let's just hope that we will be on the same team together, Sasuke said back. Hey, if old man Danzo can swing it, then before you know it, we'll be on a team together. From there, it's just a matter of time before we run the village. I can see it now, Sasuke Uchiha as the 5th Hokage, and me as your one-man army of a right hand. Naruto spoke with a broad grin on his face at the thought. Being the 5th Hokage, That has a rather nice ring to it, Sasuke replied, briefly mulling it over. However, that can wait. Right now, let's focus on graduating the academy first, Sasuke added. Then after that, we can start making this place awesome as hell, Naruto said, pumped at what the possible future could bring. Of course, Naruto. However, I will save things like that once we make Chunin. For now, I want to go home and practice with my new sword, Sasuke said back, eyeing his new weapon. Then go for it, man. I won't hold you up any longer. Have fun, and be safe with it, Naruto replied as Sasuke nodded before leaving Naruto's home. I wonder what this sword can even do. Only one way to find out, Sasuke said to himself, before heading towards the nearest training ground. Well, with him gone, I might as well get started on sketching out armor designs. I gotta have us looking dope as hell for when we make it as Chunin. Naruto spoke as he went upstairs to grab some pencil, notebook paper, and lots of coffee. 2 days later, Uchiha compound. It was the day of Sasuke's birthday as it was in full swing, and whilst it was a small affair, it was one that Sasuke enjoyed nonetheless, since it was with his closest loved ones, which made the Uchiha in question rather delighted to spend it with them. "Well, happy 17th birthmas to my favorite nephew," came the boisterous voice of Obaido. "I'm pretty sure that I am your only nephew," Sasuke replied in a semi-deadpan. "Doesn't matter, you're still my favorite nephew," Obaido answered back with a grin not too dissimilar from a familiar blonde. "Bottom line, happy birthmas, Sasuke," Obaido added with a wide-as-a-mile smile on his face. "Thanks. By the way, where's Juri at? I thought she would be here by now." Sasuke wondered as to where the rowdy taijutsu mistress was. Juri would have come, but she and Anko got into it, and you can imagine how well that went. Obaido told the younger Uchiha. "Do I even want to know how bad it was?" Sasuke asked. "Let's just say that in standard Juri fashion, Anko is going to be on crutches for the next few months. On the plus side, she can still eat solid food." Obaido answered back in relief that Anko was still in one piece. "How do you even handle that madwoman? I'm pretty sure that not even Lord Jiraiya would be crazy enough to hit on her." Sasuke wondered as to how Obaido attempted the possible with Juri-Han. "What can I say, Sasuke? I'm just that good," Obaido said with all the smugness and suaveness he could. "Sura, and I'm the second coming of Madara Uchiha," Sasuke replied, getting Obaido to deflate at that. "Can't you let me just have one moment?" Obaido semi-childishly complained. "If I won't let Naruto go around thinking he's some hot-shot Casanova, what makes you think that you will get any special treatment?" Sasuke retorted. "Because we're family, and you love me," Obaido replied with a broad smile. "I love you, Uncle Obaido. However, don't push your luck," was Sasuke's immediate reply. "Alright, Fian. I swear just like Fugaku you're no fun. Let's go enjoy your party," Obaido said before folding his arms over in a pout. From there Sasuke went back into the fold and enjoyed the rest of the evening with his loved ones, from paling around with Naruto and Shisui, to sharing in the company and talking with Obaido, Izumi, and even Ami of all people, among his other cousins that were present in his birthday celebration. The teenage Uchiha simply having a blast throughout the duration of his 16th birthday, as granted it wasn't the most extravagant or outright massive party thrown, but to Sasuke in having this small gathering around him, it was more than enough to him. With that said, Sasuke continued to enjoy the fun that was his birthday party from the food, drink, and fellowship of those around them, until it came time for every to give him the small array of presents they'd gotten for him. Everything from jutsu scrolls, money, clothes, and everything else in between that he could ask for, as while he couldn't open all of them for the sake of brevity in wanting to enjoy more of his birthday with everyone, he still was happy to have received them nonetheless. Yet it was once they brought out a large lemon cake with crimson-colored frosting and 16 bright golden-colored candles that were lit by Obaido and Fugaku, and sat down on a nearby table before Sasuke, who after closing his eyes for a few moments, took a deep breath and blew out all of the candles as he made his wish. "So what did you wish for, Sasuke?" Naruto asked. "I wish to be as great of a shinobi as my father," Sasuke answered back. "I mean, if there's anyone in the clan that I want to aspire to be like, then it would be the man who would have been the fourth Hokage had it not been for Lord Minato. Someone that, in my earnest opinion, would have made a pretty great one as well," Sasuke added, gaining a small smile from his father. "I feel honored to hear that from one of my sons. Then again, I probably could have made a better Hokage than him in my sleep." Fugaku thanked his youngest before getting a light smack to the back of the head from his wife. "Oh, come on, Mikoto, I was just making a harmless joke," Fugaku replied. "Sure you were," Mikoto said back with narrowed eyes. "Regardless, I am happy that my son is not only well on his way towards being a young man, I am also proud of him for living up to his potential, and soon joining the ranks of being a shinobi of the village." Fugaku spoke with a proud smile towards his youngest child. "Thank you, father. I promise that I will make all of you proud." I am just incredibly grateful that I come from a clan full of extraordinary shinobi. To my father who leads our clan's police force. Uncle Obito being one of the village's most accomplished jonin. Shisui being one of the village's greatest anbu to date overall. I am just incredibly blessed to come from a clan and family that is as wonderful as ours. Sasuke replied with a small but earnest smile. As such, thank all of you for attending my birthday today. I couldn't ask for a better one than this. Sasuke added. Hey, it's no problem. We all love the hell out of you. There's no other place that myself or anyone else would be. Naruto told his best friend. Naruto has a point, Sasuke. I'm just glad that I got the chance to be here with my awesome nephew. Obito said with his trademarked wide as a mild grin. Same goes for me. Honestly, I will take being here with you and the rest of the clan over having to do missions or work any day of the week. Shisui spoke in agreement with Obito. We are your parents, Sasuke. We wouldn't miss your birthday for the world. Fugaku said, getting a nod of agreement from his wife. To be honest, you are the only other person at the academy other than Naruto who I can get along with, so thanks for having me around. Ami said. Bottom line, we're happy to show up and show out for your birthday, my guy. Naruto said with a large smile on his face. And I appreciate that from all of you. That being said, why don't we enjoy some birthday cake? Sasuke replied. Sounds great to me, let's get started. Naruto said back. I call dibs on a corner piece, Shisui chimed in. From there, the birthday party continued in full effect, with everyone involved had a good time sharing in the good cheer of the event, eating cake, and enjoying in each other's fellowship until nightfall came across the clan compound. Yet within the following hours until that point, Sasuke was in near elation that he was able to spend this time with his clansmen and friends for the allotted time, simply being content and happy in the fact that he was able to spend time with all of these wonderful people around him. With it being once he retired for the night after hours of partying and good cheer with everyone, that he was able to lie asleep with a small smile on his face at having spent his birthday with everyone, as now the next thing the young man of an Uchiha was focused on was passing the academy and working towards his dreams of doing the impossible and perhaps being a leader of the village. 3 days later, Uchiha compound. It was a few days later as Shisui and Fugaku were helping Izumi out around her house, as what with her being barely 2 months out from giving birth, it had made doing normal chores rather difficult to say the least. And as such both Uchiha had agreed that it wouldn't hurt to help her during these times. Thanks again for helping me out around the house. With how far along I am, it's been pretty hard to get anything done. Izumi thanked the 2 Uchihas. There is no need to say thank you, Izumi. We are your family, and as such it is our responsibility to help out our own. Fugaku replied as he was finishing up painting the room for his grandson. Uncle Fugaku's right. If anything, we're happy to do this for you, Shisui added. Besides, it would be a pretty dick move on our part if we didn't help you out. I mean, I got extra free time going around, and he doesn't really have much to do today, so it's no skin off our back. Shisui told her while finishing putting up the groceries for her. I am just so happy to have you guys help me out. I will be even happier when this little guy finally comes out. Izumi said back while groaning as she sat down in a nearby chair. I'm sure that the only one more excited for the birth of my grandson is Makoto. I haven't seen her this excited since the day I proposed, our wedding day, our honeymoon, and when Sasuke and Itachi were born. Fugaku listed off. Trust me when I say that when September or October comes, I will be over the hill. Izumi told both of the Uchihas. By the way, Izumi, did you and Itachi ever figure out a name for the little guy? Shisui asked. Mamachimum. We decided to name him Mamoru, after Fugaku's father, Izumi answered back. How thoughtful of the 2 of you to do that. Fugaku replied with a small smile. After how much of a great warrior he was during the Second Shinobi War, and the fact that he helped lead the Uchiha clan through that and during Lord 3RD's reign, we figured it would be a great idea. Besides, with the help of everyone in our clan, I have no doubt that he will be as great as his own grandfather. Izumi said hopefully as she rubbed her large stomach. Of course, he will become a great shinobi. He has Itachi as his father, Sasuke and Obito as his uncles, and myself as his grandfather to train him. not to mention the full force of the Uchiha clan to call upon as support. Fugaku said in full confidence of his grandson becoming a great soldier of the Hidden Leaf. By the way, have any of you talked to Itachi yet about cutting back on hours? I know that working as an Anbu captain is important to him. It's just that I want him to be around more for the sake of our son. I know that I have the full support of our clan and all of you to help raise Mamoru. Yet even still, I want, or more so desire, to have Itachi here to help me. Izumi replied in hopes that someone convinced her husband to cut back on working so much with their child soon coming. The very last thing that I want him is to have them grow up without his father being present in his life, Izumi added. If I have anything to say about it, Itachi will be taking a much more prominent role concerning you and my grandson, Fugaku told her. Are you sure you can make Itachi stay around more? I don't know if even you can get him to stop working so much. He is probably one of the most committed to Kanhoa, besides Lord Minato, Izumi said in both loving and having grown to greatly dislike Itachi's devotion to Kanhoa over her pregnancy. Don't worry, Izumi. Itachi and I are long overdue for a talk such as this, and if I won't do it then Shisui or moreover Obaido certainly will, Fugaku told his daughter-in-law. Granted, Fugaku did respect his eldest for their commitment towards the village and was proud of them for having risen to such a prestigious rank within the Anbu. Yet and still he had grown tired of Itachi's constantly putting his work before his fellow clansmen. Seeing as how it had bred resentment in Sasuke, it was leaving his wife to at the rate things where she may as well be a single mother-to-be. And the fact that a growing number of the clansmen were at this point becoming indifferent to Itachi, who may as well have been a ghost within the Uchiha clan for all the time he spent playing Konoha's golden boy as it were. Yeah, even I'm getting tired of it. I mean, I'm in the Anbu too, but you don't see me making it my everything, Shisui chimed in. At this point, he's so absorbed in it that he might as well be married to it. Better yet, put a ring on it and he'll be elated, Fugaku added, getting a snicker from Shisui. I didn't think you had a sense of humor. Fugaku, did you hit your head on something? Shisui said, still snickering. After having Naruto over at my house so much, and spending time with Obaido on so many occasions, I've grown a funny bone or two, Fugaku replied with a small smile. So what's next? I'm going to be seeing you perform stand-up anytime soon? Shisui asked semi-cheekily. Perhaps, although I won't push my luck anytime soon, the last thing I need to do is make an ass out of myself in front of the entire village, Fugaku answered back. Oh come, you being a comedian wouldn't be all that bad. We just need to find you a gimmick and a place to practice and you'll be just fine, Shisui said in now wanting to see Itachi's pops be a comic. Don't push your luck, Shisui. It is not happening, Fugaku sternly replied with the steel-like countenance on his face to match his voice. All right, fine, I'll stop, Shisui said back. Still doesn't mean it wouldn't be super hilarious, Shisui said to himself. But back on track, I will be having a talk with my son about his actions. He has to understand that his impending responsibilities as a father come first before anything else, Fugaku replied, the underlying steel in his voice never wavering. For my child's sake, and even on a more selfish level my own, I hope you can talk some sense into him, Izumi said back. I'm sure Itachi will come around. I mean, even he can't be that up the village's ass that he won't come around for you and the kid. To be honest, I will be shocked if he doesn't make it for Mamoru's birth. At that point, I'll know he's really fucking up, Shisui said in hopes such a thing wouldn't happen. So will I, Shisui. We both wanted to have this child together, but after everything that's been going on these past few months, it more or less feels like it's just me doing this, and I honestly don't know what to do about him and our son, Izumi said back in having felt as time went on that it was more of a solo effort than a team effort. Trust me, Izumi. One way or the other, I will have this sorted out. I swear that on my position as a clan head, I will do what I can to make sure this is resolved, Fugaku swore to her. Good luck, Fugaku. If there is one thing Itachi has that I love him for, it is how steadfast he is with every decision. That's why you will definitely have your work cut out for you, Izumi told the Uchiha patriarch. If I can handle leading our clan, raising 2 children, having served in the 3rd Shinobi War, and survived the Nine Tails attack, Then I am more than confident that I can handle Itachi. Fugaku replied in complete confidence. Do you want me as backup? Itachi is pretty stubborn when it comes to the village, Shisui asked. No, I should be fine. In the meantime, why don't we get started on making lunch for my daughter-in-law? After helping out around the house and with groceries, I'm sure all of us could do for something to eat. Fugaku asked, as an audible growl from Izumi's stomach sounded off as if to punctuate his point. Maybe a small lunch won't hurt, Izumi said sheepishly as her stomach continued rumbling. I'll get started immediately. Shisui, help Izumi with anything else she needs while I get started. Fugaku told his fellow Uchiha. Got it, Shisui said whilst Fugaku made a few shadow clones. Is Fugaku any good at cooking? Izumi asked. Who do you think makes all of the food when you visit over to their house? Have you ever wondered why Mikoto never is in the kitchen? Yet Fugaku looks like he worked a 9 to 5 at the Atomix's. Shisui responded as the shadow clones went to work like it was old hat. If he ever went into retirement, he'd probably give the Atomix's and Ikaraku a run for their money too, Shisui added. With the speedster of an Uchiha having to give credit where it was due and the fact that Fugaku was incredibly skilled when it came to cooking, as it wasn't the fanciest or something that would be seen in a 4-star restaurant. However, it was more than delicious enough that both civilians, shinobi, and even the Atomix's had to give him his dues when it came to making so good food, as the Uchiha patriarch took it almost as seriously as his skills in ninjutsu and taijutsu. So that's why everything was so good when I came to visit. I legitimately thought it was Mikoto who did all of the cooking, Izumi said in realization. Nope, it's all Fugaku. Trust me, Mikoto is a great lady and all, but she can't cook to save a life. She's a good jonin, and a hell of a shot with a crossbow. But when it comes to making a decent meal, let's just say she's as good as Lady Tsunade is at gambling, and leave it at that, Shisui said, making the Pregant Uchiha beside him shiver at the thought. Is it really that bad? Izumi asked in slight horror. If I'm using Lady Tsunade to compare my aunt to, then that should say enough about her cooking, Shisui answered back, shuddering at the last time he ate Mikoto's cooking. That is a very good point, Izumi said. But for now, why don't we just sit back and let my uncle make us a pretty great lunch? I mean, we've got the rest of the day to relax. So how about we go outside for a little bit and take your mind off things? Shisui said as he stood up to offer her hand. That sounds rather lovely, Shisui, Izumi said back as she took his hand and walked outside with him. I swear to God, Itachi, you had better not let your devotion to the village botch your relationship with her or my grandson. Otherwise, a failed mission will be the least of your worries, Fugaku thought to himself as he continued to prepare lunch for Shisui and Izumi with the help of his clones. It was coming up to the end of summer as Naruto was feeling rather good with everything. What with him having unlocked Phantasma and having trained with it amongst his other aliens more so to cause nighttime mayhem and shenanigans with the horrifying specter of a ghost. He was mainly either using his aliens to create more gadgets, weapons and machines both for his friends in Sasuke and Ami, as well as for himself and those within route, much to the approval of Danzo, who was all too happy to have his men wield the newest in technology. Other than that, he spent his time hanging out with his grandpa Dan or Tsunade, training and sparring with Sasuke or getting to know Ami, who despite being Danzo's granddaughter, was rather chill to be around and in fact was the one to give him a few ideas for new gadgets and machines he had in mind. Yet the one saving grace throughout all of this was the fact that he didn't have to be near or around his family whatsoever, as Naruto was more than fine with riding things out until the inevitable soon came. It was early in the afternoon as Naruto was walking outside with Ami with his newest outfit on, and as such was feeling pretty good in having a new change of clothes to match the motif and color scheme of his aliens. I'll give you credit, Uzumaki. You definitely have stepped up your wardrobe, Ami said in regards to Naruto's new outfit. Thanks. It may not be all flashy and stuff, but I think this looks pretty good, Naruto replied. With Naruto now wearing a pair of blue jean shorts with multiple pockets for him to keep his smaller and more collapsible gadgets in, a pair of onyx and sapphire-colored high tops with neon blue stitching on the sides, and lastly was him wearing a short-sleeved black shirt with cobalt blue stripes on either side and another blue stripe going down the middle. I can't really explain why, but the whole black and blue thing just works for me. Too bad I couldn't find something that had some orange in here to really tie it together. Then I would have been looking rad as heck. Naruto added in slight dismay at not being able to add one of his favorite colors to his attire. With autumn right around the corner, I am sure you will find something. Because, I will have to admit, Naruto, that wearing orange does work for you, although I am surprised that you didn't go for that orange outfit they had, since you love it so much. Ami replied. Here's the thing, Ami. I like the color orange, but whoever made that was overdoing it. Since I want all of my stuff to mix well together, not be some giant hot orange mess, although if I got to customize it myself, I'd definitely make it more dope looking. Naruto said back, as had it been for it being mainly an obnoxious orange, he would have probably purchased it. Fair enough, Naruto. Ami said as they eventually found a quiet place to chat at. By the way, what are you going to do about your transformation situation? Eventually, Lord Fourth and everyone will find out about that. Ami asked the shapeshifting blonde. Simple. I'll tell them that what I have allows me to be a great asset to the village. There's no real point in trying to fib that it's something else when they see what I can do with it. Plus, if they want to be mad at me for keeping this a secret from them, then what do they expect from me? It would be pretty hard to explain to them that I can turn into aliens without sounding like a total lunatic. The real problem is a matter of when and how I'm going to break it all down to them. Naruto answered back. That is true. I honestly found it hard to believe myself, until I saw you turn into that Doomfire transformation of yours. Ami said back in vivid memory of when she saw Naruto transform into the fiery transformation. Which reminds me of something I wanted to ask, just how hot can you actually make Doomfire's flames? Ami questioned. To be honest, I haven't had the chance to see just how high I can take them. At most the strongest I can make it is equal to a ranked jutsu. But even then that's not me going at it super hard, so as far as I know, I don't really know just how far I can take Doomfire's flames. Naruto replied in regards to his incendiary transformation. This also goes for my other transformations, because I don't really even know if there's an upper limit to what I can do. Since it's barely been 6 months since I've had this thing on me, and I still don't know the full extent of what I can do. Then that's on top of any other transformations I unlock down the road. Naruto added as so far he didn't know what he was truly capable of with his aliens. If what you say about Doomfire is anything to go off of, then I'm pretty sure that by the time the Chunin exams happen, that your transformations are going to be able to overpower most Jonin. Ami surmised of his aliens' capabilities. I don't doubt it. I mean, we are talking about all these badass aliens I can turn into, plus how great I am already. That just makes it so that I'm just meant to obliterate anybody I wind up going up against. All I have to do is play it smart, and turn into the right one to rock their shit. Naruto said back with a smug grin at the power his transformations could wield. Don't go getting a big head, Naruto. The last thing we need is another Naoya running around, thinking he's hot shit. Ami said in sharp disdain for the other half of the Uzumaki twins. Trust me, Ami. I'm not gonna turn out anything like him. I may be confident in what I can do, but even I know my transformations have their limits probably. Besides, at least when I use my stuff, I don't have to worry about going nuts because of an overgrown fox with an attitude problem. Naruto replied. Also, on a small side tangent here, but I just cannot get on board with why anyone thinks the whole Jinchuriki thing is a reliable idea. Because again, having to depend on some uppity kitsune who's pissy all the time sounds really, really undependable. You can try and master its power all you want, but at the end of the day, if it has a tantrum because you didn't kiss its ass when it wants, then suddenly your ace in the hole is outright fucked and then some. Naruto said in having found the idea of a Jinchuriki to be an idea that was outright born to backfire sooner rather than later. That is a really good point. It is up there on the list of reasons why I don't particularly care for either one of them. The very last thing I need is for us to be on a high-stakes mission. Then suddenly we're fucked because our secret weapon is having a spat with their tenant. Ami responded in not liking the twins for the fact that they were highly unreliable assets. That's at best when you think about it. At worst they get in over their heads with someone that knows what they're doing and can kick their butts from here to snow country. Then they get so roided out on Nine Tails' power that they Hulk out, and then we have to deal with them going berserk. All with the added bonus of having next to no one who can rein them in, because Masako is the only one who knows wood release, and Sasuke's Sharingan isn't strong enough to handle a rampaging Heiase or Naoya just yet. Which would fall to me to bust something out to get them under control. Naruto said back in having had more than ample time to think over the severity of having his siblings on a mission. Naruto, having also over the time period he's trained with his combat-focused aliens, had the time to mull over the fact that it penultimately fell to him to subdue his siblings should things go awry, as with Sasuke's Sharingan not strong enough and Uncle Obito being the only other person who could reliably do it. Left the shapeshifter none too thrilled to go on missions with his younger siblings. After all, when one bad day on a mission could make Naoya or Heiase throw a temper tantrum to where the risk of them hopping up on Nine Tails' chakra to the point of going berserk was a reality, suffice to say the Ultimatrix wielder made it a point to always be ready for the worst case to come. We're gonna be screwed if things go south on a high-ranking mission with them, aren't we? Ami questioned. Yup. Which is why I'm basically waiting for it to happen at this point. Because it's a matter of if and not when for the ticking time bombs that are my brother and sister. Naruto answered back. Just how did we get from talking about you being a powerhouse with your aliens to talking about us possibly dying thanks to the twins? Ami wondered. Well, when you compare powerhouses like my transformations and the fact that they hold the strongest of the tailed beast in existence, it's gonna happen sooner or later. Naruto reasoned. I won't argue with that. By the way, one of these days I would like to spar with one of your transformations. It seems like Sasuke gets all the fun, and I want my go at it. Ami said to the Ultimatrix wielder. Really? Naruto asked. Yes, I want to see just how strong they are, and see if I can take one of them on in a real fight. Ami answered back, keen to test her skills against one of his aliens. If that's the case, then all you had to do is ask. Better yet, we could head over to the training facility right now. Naruto offered to the Warhawk's granddaughter. Deal. Let's see which is stronger, my wind and water jutsu, plus my sword skills, or your aliens. Ami replied. Probably my aliens, was Naruto's instant reply. Whatever, I'll see you there in a couple of minutes. I just have to run back to my house and grab my equipment. Ami said back before disappearing in a leaf shunshin. This is so on her if she gets beat up by them. The only question is just how disrespectful I want to be with them, Naruto said to himself whilst making his way toward the root training facilities. 5 days later, Akamichi BBQ and Grill. It was nearly later as Naruto was with his grandpa Dan and Masako, with the older Senju wanting to welcome back his youngest after succeeding on an A-rank mission. Congrats on acing the mission, Masako. That's gotta be like what, your 4th A-rank in a row? Naruto congratulated his fellow blonde. It's actually my 5th, but at this point who's counting? Masako replied. I'm pretty sure you can get away with that, by having one of the most busted bloodlines in the village. I mean, next to the Sharingan, having the whole wood release thing is pretty overpowered. Naruto remarked at the fact his cousin had the first Hokage's bloodline. Hey, it's not my fault I hit the jackpot with great-grandpa Hashirama's powers. Besides, unlike him, I've ramped mine up to do other stuff. Since it's pretty cool when you can make tree golems, killer plants, and monsters out of literal forest life. If anything, I'm leveling up from what he can do. Masako said with a grin that matched Naruto's whenever he got really into his aliens or one of his inventions. Seeing as how the daughter of Tsunade and the inheritor of the wood release had over her career as a jonin, decided to go on a much different route than her ancestor with the power of her bloodline, deciding to go for a wholly more offensive and one might say even predatory approach with the nature-based bloodline. With Masako having preferred it this way in how she used her bloodline, since she saw it more as a way to overall turn the world around her into an extension that could let her be the queen of her own world, and obliterate anyone who dared to step foot into her kingdom. You're not wrong, I mean with all the crazy stuff you can do with it so far. I mean the fact that you can make killer plants come up, and either eat people, make strong as hell acids and shit that can melt their insides. Then there's the whole making monsters out of anything around like some kind of super druid, and turning things into a horror movie. Naruto replied in regards to how Masako employed her wood release. Well, I mean, what's the point of having nature powers if you won't do awesome stuff with it? Plus, you should see the look on those Iwa jerks when I do my super moves. Good times, Masako said back with a proud yet monstrous smile and a small bit of chuckling to follow. Every time I hear about your missions, I'm almost glad you're not a Jonin sensei, the very last thing this village needs. Dan said in knowing that those poor genin wouldn't last a month with his daughter. Oh come on, Dad. What I do isn't that bad. Masako replied. On one of your last missions, you traumatized one of your teammates by, and I quote, slam dunking one of your captives into a giant pitcher plant and making them watch their teammates dissolve. Then there was the flytrap incident, and I don't think I need to say much more than that. Dan reminded his daughter. In my defense, he should have dodged better. It's not my fault his all-seeing eye couldn't get out of the way. Masako flippantly replied. Just be lucky that they reattached the poor boy's leg in time. Otherwise, we would have had to hear it from the Hyuga clan that you put one of theirs in a wheelchair. Dan said thankful that the medics were able to save his leg. Well, let that be a lesson to the little white-eyed fucker. Either get good or get out of the way. Plus, in my defense, Dad, I wasn't even throwing out any of my big stuff. Now, if I were hitting them with my predaplants, then it would have been a different story. Masako said back as her grin widening at the mention of her predaplants. How could I forget about those things? I swear I don't. What would be worse to fight? Orochimaru's snakes or your predaplants? Dan spoke with a shiver at how destructive her predaplants could be. It's obviously my predaplants. Unlike his dumbass snakes, mine can do a lot of cool stuff. Plus, they can regenerate and use their plant powers to basically turn something like Manda into a scaly prune in minutes. Masako replied in full confidence her predaplants could be the snake summons. Yeah, even I gotta agree with her on that one. Grandpa. I mean, she may not be on the same power level as the first Hokage himself, and what he could do. But even I gotta concede that her predaplants could rock the shit out of his snakes, any day of the week. Naruto said in agreement with his cousin. See? Even Naruto thinks so. Masako exclaimed. Well, of course. Next to Obaido, Juri, Mike Guy, Grandpa and Grandma Tsunade, Kanishi and Shisui. You're one of the strongest people I know. Naruto replied. I'm surprised you didn't put Jiraiya on that list. Even I have to give him credit for being one of the strongest next to Minato. Dan said back in begrudging acknowledgement of Jiraiya's strength. What about him, Grandpa? I'm not going to give the guy who said I was a good-for-nothing accident, and I quote something that Kushina should have swallowed. Like hell, I'll listen to some idiot who peeps on women all day, and then has the nerve to call my machines useless trinkets, and say I should focus on being a real shinobi like him or Dad. The fucking nerve when he'd still get his shit rocked by Grandma. Naruto said in heavy disdain towards the Toad Sage. I'd like to see him call my stuff useless when I build a laser cannon that can blast his toads into a puddle. Naruto said to himself as the idea of such a thing did bring a brief smile to his face. Then he wonders why Mom never gave him the time of day. I swear, he thinks he can act like a pervy dick all the time. Then thinks everything's gonna be hunky-dory fucking prick. I oughta beat his ass with my predaplants for all the crap he's done, Masako said in never having really liked Jiraiya whatsoever. Don't forget about the fact that he writes some pretty crappy smut too. I mean, I've read hentai with better plot than what he does most of the time. Naruto added. I honestly cannot even fathom why Minato and Kushina listen to him. On one hand, I get that he practically raised Minato and mentored him since he was a genin and was his cornerstone for ages. Yet on the other hand, all he's done is ridicule my grandson for wanting to be an inventor that could turn the village around. Make it so those twin nuisances are a pair of arrogant blowhards and practically help in phasing you out of your own family for some god-forsaken prophecy. Then the icing on the cake is that he still has the gall to hit on my wife, and in my presence half of the time. Dan said as he felt his anger towards Jiraiya surface and more until the crunch of the booth they were seated at was heard. So bottom line, we can agree that Pervy Sage is a giant asshole, Masako asked. Yes, was both Naruto's and Dan's reply. Also, I should really watch my temper. The very last thing I need is to have my wallet emptied because of it. Dan remarked as he held a large fist-sized chunk of the booth. To be fair, we're talking about one of the biggest pieces of shit in the village. I mean, I'd smack him around with some of my wood jutsu if I could. But Nuo, Mom won't let me. Something about how she doesn't want to explain why oak trees were punching the shit out of him to Lord Forth, or why there's a tree branch stuck in his dickhole, Masako said as she took the chunk of the table from her father. As much I love you and dislike him, I have to agree with your mother about not letting you use your wood jutsu on him, Dan replied as she pressed the broken chunk into the table and small wooden roots began to extend and stitch it all back into place. The very last thing we need is for you to get overzealous, and you wind up fighting him one of those battles with his summons that Naruto likes to watch at the theaters. What are they? Dan said as he tried to rack his brain for the word. You mean kaijus, and they're awesome. Also, I would pay so much money to see your predaplants fight his toads. That would be some fucking awesome. Naruto almost yelled out in sheer excitement of such a potential thing. Trust me, Naruto. If I could make it happen I would, but I'd rather not have Mom mad at me. You know as well as I do that an angry Tsunade is not a good thing, Masako said back. While Masako had the utmost confidence in her wood release powers and her insane physical strength and durability that made her a virtual juggernaut, even she wasn't foolish enough to piss off her mom. As you can say what you want, but the last thing she was willing to do was make someone who was renowned as one of the greatest medics angry at her. I gotta agree with you on that one. I could care less about what my mom and dad do if they want to be pissy at me. Granny Tsunade, however, not so much. I'm not trying to have my insides get fucked up because I pissed her off. No thank you, Naruto said in agreement with his elder cousin. I'm glad to see that the two of you have some common sense. Otherwise, the two of you would be in a hospital room right now, Dan remarked with a small smile. Still, I'm glad to see that my daughter has made it back in one piece, Dan added as his smile widened to one more of fatherly warmth and joy. Was there any doubt that I would? Masako replied with an ever-confident smile. Never at all. You're my daughter after all. Still, with how crazy this world is, I can't help but worry, Dan said back. That's fair and all, but it doesn't matter how crazy the world gets. Because with how crazy strong I am already, I'm almost wanting for someone to step to me. Then I can have an excuse to really go all out. Masako spoke knowing her strength was more than enough for almost anyone. I just need to work on being able to do that sage mode stuff like Great Gramps could do. Then I'll finally get to be the ultimate menace, Masako said to herself. So what are you gonna do now that you're off duty for a while? Naruto asked. I dunno. Probably kick it with Shisui and Kanishi, hit up Juri and see it we can have some sparring matches. Then probably work on a pet project of mine that I've been working on, Masako answered back. Should I even want to know about this pet project of yours, Masako? Dan asked. Let's just say I'm keeping it a surprise. It wouldn't be any fun if I spoiled it, now would it? Masako told her father. I just ask that whatever it is, that it won't end up turning the village into a jungle full of nightmares. We already have the forest of death for that, Dan requested. I promise nothing, Masako said back with an impish grin. Good enough, Dan said, knowing it was the best he was going to get from his daughter. From there, and once their food came, they continued to talk, have a few laughs, and shared in the good time of Masako having returned from her most recent mission. All the while Masako, for shits and giggles, did do a few party tricks with her wood release, such as making small wood golems dance for their amusement while they ate. With their day out together eventually came to a close after an hour and some change of eating and laughing around. As everyone went to depart from one another, Naruto did grab Masako for a bit to talk to her for a bit. Hey, Masako, there's something I wanted to ask from you and tell you about, Naruto said. What is it? Masako asked. When you get whatever this pet project of yours done, you want to have a go at it? Because I've got some cool stuff that I can do too, and I really want to see how some of the stuff I can do stacks up against you, Naruto requested from the taller blonde. Are you sure you want to do this, Naruto? Because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I could literally snap you in half if I wanted. That's without all my wood release and predaplant stuff I can do, and my pet project, Masako asked. Trust me, Misako. It'll be fine, and besides I'm pretty sure that some of the stuff I can do now can handle most of what you've got. So I'm sure it'll all be fine. Naruto answered back with complete confidence in his aliens. So how about it, Misako? My superpower to, for a lack of a better term, transform into anything I want vs your powers and pet project once it's done? Naruto said to the daughter of Tsunade. Alright, I'll bite. But I want to see just what it is your whole transforming into anything you want is all about. I've heard you and Sasuke talk about this a couple times when you two come over, and I want to see it in person before I commit. Misako told the younger blonde. Deal. Just give me a month or two before I show you. I'm still working some of this stuff out. Naruto replied in regards to still figuring out the Ultimatrix. Sounds fine by me anyways. If there anything else you want to talk to me about? Other than what my pet project is, Misako asked, as Naruto opened his mouth to say something before closing it and nodding no. Okay? Anyways, I'll see you later. Misako said before using her inhuman strength to leap high into the air. Well, it looks like I'll get the chance to stress test my aliens. Neat, were Naruto's thoughts before he decided to head home for the day. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Nomadic Chaos on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.